Every tree has roots, every life has branches, and every adoption has a story. Some stories begin with questions, some begin with loss. All of them are rooted in love and the search for connection. This is Janet Monroe, and this is Roots and Branches Adoption Stories, a podcast where real stories take root and grow. Because the more we share, the more we understand, and understanding helps us grow. Now, here's Janet Monroe.
The roots basically are the birth parents, the adoptee, and the adoptive parents. The branches refer to the far-reaching effects, meaning the sisters, brothers, siblings, aunts, uncles, and other people that are affected by adoption. My name is Janet. I am a root. I am a birth mom. And today I have a gentleman with me who is also a root. He is a dad, a birth dad, and he has his own story to tell. So it's my privilege and honor to introduce you to this gentleman because not too many birth dads get to tell their story. So I'm really honored and privileged that Shane has joined us today. So welcome, Shane.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Janet.
Tell your story from the beginning.
Okay. So I do want to have a quick preface. I do want to say that number one, I don't hold any animosity. I don't hold any anger. I don't hold anything against what happened. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that in this story, it did happen. And this is, of course, also from my perspective as how things played out. But I want to let my son know, in case he ends up watching this, as well as his mom and their family, that this is something where I'm not coming out here to be, I call it aggressive or angry or anything like that. And it really is just something that I don't want to have other people go through similar circumstances. And so that's why I want to be able to share the story from my perspective. And I wanted to provide that preface for not only those that I do respect in this story, but also all of you guys, because I want you to know that first and foremost, it did happen. It may happen to you. And at the end of the day, you really do need to be able to forgive and understand that as long as you're doing the best that you can within the circumstances that are provided to you, don't let anybody shame you. Don't let anybody try and push you into positions that are not the best specifically for your child at the end of the day. And so I wanted to preface, but my story really does actually begin in my childhood, as I'm pretty sure that most people's stories do when it comes to this type of difficult circumstance that many of us unfortunately have to face. And I grew up in a very, very poor home. We had been homeless a couple of different times. I also grew up in a scenario where I was told that my dad was literally the devil incarnate. And I was told that he was trying to chase us across the country to kill me in particular. And that he was fighting and trying to hunt me down. So I really grew up in a very hostile type of mental circumstance where I was used as fodder, if you will, and used as a weapon against the other parent between my father and my mother. And unfortunately, I remember many different really difficult memories, even starting as young as age 3 years old. So I remember seeing my dad end up actually having a physical altercation with my mom. I remember my mom crying, and I remember that my sister and I grew up in a circumstance where we were like, we wanted our parents to divorce. It was so bad. And with all of that childhood, honestly, trauma, and leading up to even suicide before the age of, I was 11 years old by the time that I had already faced my first time of wanting to commit suicide because of how difficult and challenging life was. I, like many other people, didn't want to have that for my family. And I made, promises to myself that I'm going to live life better. I'm going to do things better. And my kids aren't going to face these circumstances. So the importance of that was really massive, because that ended up shaping the way that I viewed parenting. It ended up shaping the way that I viewed the world. And I went through many different phases as a child where I at one point thought that the way to be happy, for example, was to have friends, because I had no friends. I was getting beat up every day. And I went through another phase where I thought the way to be happy was to be the smartest. And next thing you know, I start trying to surround myself and pursue being intellectually better than everybody. Found out that that's not true. And there are these different phases that I had to root myself out of as life went on. And eventually, I ended up meeting my son's mother. And when we did this, my mentality was, I'm going to marry whoever it is that I end up dating, and we're going to be married, and then we're going to have children. And I grew up in a Christian home, although the environment was very conflicting in a lot of different ways. And with that mentality being brought into this relationship, I was also in a phase of my life where I fell in love with money. And I had gone through other prior relationships where the challenges of dealing with somebody who was like an introvert, for example, I was like, oh, I could never do that. Or dealing with the challenges of somebody else who I didn't find smart enough, or brave enough, wise enough. I was always doing this filtration of the people, and it was very unfair. And when I came to my son's mother, the priority at that point, the thing that I thought was going to fix it all, was having a woman who was comfortable with money. Because it's like, I'm going to make a lot of money in life. And I was like, I'm going to be super successful. I'm going to be the best of the best. I'm going to be multi-millionaire, And I was like, I had experienced other people who had poor mentality. And so when I came across her, and when I talked about money, when I talked about hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars, she didn't even bat an eye. I was like, oh, okay, then this is somebody that I'm going to be able to marry. She was saying that she was a Christian, and we had quote unquote alignment, but it's very, I guess, there was a lot of lies that were there, both for me lying to myself, and then her also lying to herself and me, and all sorts of stuff that was going on. I say all this because this is really the groundwork for what unfolded in our relationship. So I first want to say that at this time, my ex was an individual who believed everything that came out of her mouth, and had no training, had no direction. And I would argue that the parenting was not good, especially for her being adopted herself. And it led to a lot of really strange behaviors. And some of those behaviors were really difficult to identify because the money masked it. So, for example, I remember that I visited her, and I traveled across state lines to go and meet her. And when I went to her home, she had really a huge collection of like shot glasses, where she traveled the world. She had a really beautiful car. She had a great condo that was very expensive. She was living on her own. And in the communications with her, everything that she would say was like, oh, this is my car. This is my home. This is my glasses. I go to work. I'm going to college. I'm doing all these different things. And what was fascinating about this whole exchange is that this world that she had created was completely funded by her father, 100%. But because of how wealthy they were, there was no indicators or signs that were able to filter themselves through to let me know that she was actually not correctly viewing the world around her. So because of my attraction to money at the time, and my obsession with trying to find somebody who was in this weird relationship with money itself, I didn't look at the signs for what they really were. And so we ended up dating. We ended up actually even getting engaged. And uh, the, even in the engagement, she asked me to marry her. I didn't even do that to her because I was always on this weird fence line trying to figure out what the truth was. Something always felt wrong and off. Um, and I will also say that I definitely did love her, but the moment that I realized that, oh, her family is funding everything, that when she said she was going to college, it actually turned out that she was only going for like an hour a week, and she was only doing like 1 or 2 credits at a time, and she was making it sound like she was going full time. And then she had a job, but it turns out that she wasn't even going to job full time. She was only going there like once every 3 or 4 weeks, and her family was funding her to go everywhere else. It took me a long time. It took me years actually to figure this out because I lived in a completely different state while we were dating. um, and I finally figured it out when we had made the decision for her to move actually together with me over into Wisconsin, and where I was at, where I had my work. And at the time, I was building up a company with a partner of mine in marketing and advertising. And I could not afford the place that was given us. We'll just put it that way. And her dad insisted on paying for everything. And so no matter how hard I tried to gain a ground as a man in the relationship, daddy was always there. And there was no way I could shake him because she had relied on him for so long. And so that ended up making it so every time that there could have been an opportunity for growth and development with each other, it was always actually an opportunity for her parents to come in and create another wedge between us. The wedges became so massive that when we ended up having my son, we were at home and she started freaking out, which I know that a lot of mothers go through several emotional swings. I mean, your bodies are completely out of regulation. It's really hard to be able to manage it. And this is why being married, I think, before marriage is so important. Or sorry, having your children after marriage is so important because you've already gone through real trials, real struggles, and you would have already worked together through them so that you can have trust in the midst of other circumstances that might arise. You're literally choosing your partner, and the family gets pushed out like they should be. And so you and your partner are able to rely upon each other. You and your spouse are able to bond in life. And then the child is able to come so that when those real challenges, those real circumstances come, you're not going to fight, run, and you're going to be able to say, we've already done really hard things like getting married. We can do this together as parents. And so her family absolutely hated me. They could not stand me. A lot of it had to do with the fact I was a very strong-willed, very strong personality. I believe they felt like I took their daughter away from them, and I believe that they felt that I was leading their daughter in a path that they didn't want for her. And I also came from a background that was not high class, high society. So me being able to really integrate into that world, which was a very different world, was very foreign to me, and obviously a pain to them, especially with a lot of the customs I found out that happen all the time within their community. And so their parents utilized this as a mechanism, used money as the mechanism to effectively keep on making so their daughter came back to them, and kept on creating that wedge. It got so bad that when my son was already 6 months, 3 months, somewhere between there, I was holding him, I was sitting down on the couch, and my ex ended up having some sort of emotional event and ended up coming to me while I was holding my son, and then tried prying my son from my arms while I was holding on to him and caring for him. And it was getting aggressive, so I relinquished him to her so that he wouldn't end up getting harmed. And then when she took him, I was sitting down still, and she ended up trying to knee me in my face with her knee while she was holding my son. And the event actually like literally sprained my wrist. And so I ended up having physical harm enough where I was like, this is not healthy. This is not okay. We can't do this. And so we both agreed, after she had finally calmed down, that number one, that was not safe for our son, and that wasn't safe for me either. And I said that she needs to leave the state. She needs to go back home. And what I was going to do is I was going to find a way to take care of the house, get out of the contract, get out of the lease, and then I was going to move over to where she was, which was Michigan. I don't remember how. I think it was like 10 hours away or something. And so, unfortunately, that was actually one of the last times I was going to see my son, was that day. I already was in a place I couldn't afford. I was dealing with an individual who had control over the home, over all the financials that she had placed this in. And the strain and everything else that was going on was so much that I ended up being put into one of the worst financial positions that I ever encountered. And also, her parents were strategically leveraging that pressure in order to separate her from me. So ultimately they won. At the end of the day, they won. And when she went back home, I was still trying to get things together. I still was trying to get to Michigan. I was trying to put all my, eggs together, but it was just so difficult. And next thing you know, she started acting weird, is the best way I can say it. And when she started acting weird, it was when I started getting tipped off that obviously something was changing. And I kept on following this plan that I thought I was supposed to be going over there, and we were going to just go to an area where she was comfortable so that then we could, raise our child together and get married. And that's what I was committed to. But when the 6 months was up, they pulled a fast one and they filed to be able to take custody of my son. And so I ended up in a situation that I'm facing multi-millionaires. And when I say I mean, like, they had been paying an average of about $800,000+ for her, just do whatever she wanted to every year. That was basically her allowance, to give you guys an idea of how much this is. And they ended up throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars in lawyers to find a strategic way to position me in a spot where I was going to be drowned and picked apart, and I was not going to have a shot at being able to really have a chance of having a relationship with my son at the end of the day. And their plan was they were just going to bury me with lawyers and bury me with money and indefinitely until effectively I'd give up. And I also remember that there was just a lot of circumstances where I had to really take a moment. I had to ask myself, what am I willing to do? And when is it that I have to give the white flag? And I say this because a lot of people are told, hey, listen, if you don't fight for your kids, then you're a person who's evil and vile, and how dare you? You need to sacrifice every single thing that you have to make sure that you can have custody of your kids. But coming from a family where I was a 3-year-old, 5-year-old, 10-year-old, 11-year-old, and I ended up having to become the adult, and I was used as fodder, I honestly disagree. I remember my mom convulsing on the floor, and my dad's name just populates on the caller ID, and she's using that as a way to influence me into believing that my dad is literally trying to kill me and die, and he's some sort of insane evil vile person who has cameras everywhere, and he's like almost like he's like Big Brother or something. And I had to deal with that type of fighting my whole entire childhood. And it didn't stop until I made it stop. I remember that I had to tell my dad that I wasn't going to talk to him anymore until I was 18 years old, because I finally broke. I couldn't handle the stress anymore of that position that they put me into. And I loved my dad dearly. And I know that I broke his heart. And I know that I chose to stay with my mom. And I was even given that choice in the court systems of who you're going to be with, your mom or your dad, when I was only, I think it was like 9 or 10 years old. Those decisions aren't supposed to be for kids. That type of difficult scenario is not supposed to be for them. They're not supposed to be experiencing what it's like to be witnessing your parents, not just fighting, but literally using you as the mechanism to hurt, harm, destroy the other. And you're not understanding of everything that's going on. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I was actually the one who lost. I really was. I didn't have a childhood. I remember that most of my life was just running. It was running from one place to the next. And half the time we're poor, and the other half the time we're like, well, we have money, but how do we get the money? And then half the other time it's like I'm being beat up. That life was so miserable that I would never wish it on my worst enemy. And the crazy thing is that there's people who even had worse lives than that. And that's insane to me to even think about. So when thinking about all these different things, and I was trying to make this parameter, if you will, for my son, and what I was going to do to help protect him from that life, I made a decision that I was gonna give it until he's 3 years old. I was gonna fight as hard as I possibly could, and I was gonna fight the absolute best way that I could. And the best way I could is always trying to get the best. So, I mean, countless contracts that I myself would write, because their lawyers would throw in some sort of element of like, oh, we can't talk with your lawyers, and all these communications BS. And then they would throw another tactic in there. Next thing you know, like, we'll only talk with you if it is with the lawyer. And then other aspects in there where it's like, his mom would come to me and she would start saying, oh, well, let's just do something ourselves. Everything was just a ruse. Everything was just a tactic. Everything was just meant to, I believe, to drive it so that I was going to be put into a corner and have to give him up. Because at the end of the day, what his grandparents wanted, what his whole extended family wanted, was for me to give him up. That's what they wanted. And the long story short of absolute crazy insanity, lying and cheating, reneging, and just vile, disgusting stuff, in my opinion. Things that would make you want to run from those types of people, just because they're so evil in their actions and their activities and their intentions. I had to come into a position where I had to just ask myself, am I willing to let my son see his mom and myself continue to fight forever? And am I willing to let him become fodder, not because I'm going to use him that way myself, but because that's how his mom was showing patterns, that she was using him all the time. So I had to make a decision, and I said that I'm not going to do that to him. And when I weighed the pros and cons, and I thought about the fact that, yeah, her family loves him. He was the only grandchild that they were going to have. And they would give everything to make sure that he was taken care of. And so I knew that his life was going to be okay from a, financial stability perspective, obviously. And then I thought about the fact that even though his mom would be willing to use him as fodder against me, it didn't change the fact that at least when she was with him alone, she did a decent job of being a mom. Nothing that I would be mad at, nothing that I would actually judge her for. Nothing that would scream, she's not doing drugs, she's not doing alcohol, she's not doing all that stuff. Like, the worst thing that she did is she'd be dating somebody. And most of the guys that she dated were not the greatest, but also not the worst type of guys you could possibly think of, you know? So weighing out all these different things, I had to come to the conclusion that it was either going to be an all in or all out type of scenario. And I was not going to allow him to have a single memory of her and I fighting against each other. So when he was around 3 years old, I set up a time and I had somebody come with me, and she had the gentleman who was going to become his adoptive father, because the state requires that a child has both a mother and father at all times, period. I don't know how she roped him into it, honestly. I'd love to be able to talk to him, but he every time I've ever tried to talk to him, he never will talk to me. So I don't know. I'll never know that, probably. But either way, I let them know that I was going to show up, and it was going to be either a contract on the right or a contract on the left. And the contract on the right was going to be a 50-50, straight down the middle, every single thing. And it was to be to the T exactly what's actually best for Isaiah, period. And then I said, you can provide the contract to the right, whatever you want. I don't care what it is. And so we showed up at it was like a children's museum, which was my first time in, I don't even know. It probably been over a year at that point that I've been able to see my son, because she kept holding on to him and running in the different state. And like I said, I hadn't been able to see him basically ever. And the contracts are on the table, and I said, one of these is going to be signed today. And I let her know that the best one is the 50-50. And I said that everything is, if you really care about Isaiah, you're going to do the 50-50. And I said, what happens though is that whatever is signed, I let her know it was on her shoulders. And because I'd been fighting that for forever. And she still made the decision to bring out the adoption contract and ask me to still sign it. And so I was like, okay, this is it, time's up. I can't let him see anything else. So I signed the adoption paperwork. And what's crazy is that up until that point, it was almost near to impossible to be able to even see my child. So for 3 years, basically, I'd been fighting my butt off to try and find ways to take care of the problem that they had thrown me into, and then also try and see him in a completely different state. And with all the financial burdens, it was near to impossible to be able to find a way out of that hole that they had put me into, through leveraging, obviously, the relationship I had with their daughter. And so it was like 3 days later, all of a sudden, number one, they changed his name. So they took away what I, as a father, had the opportunity to do, which was, name your child. They took that away. They changed his middle name. Then they changed his last name. And then after they did that, they started calling me like, oh, hey, you want to see your son? You want to see your son? Say hi and everything else. Like nothing happened. And it was good for like, I don't know, 3 months. All of a sudden, I finally was able to see my son. All of a sudden, it was like, oh, okay, I can actually be in my son's life. Like, I was like, oh, this maybe that's all they needed, was just they needed adoption. Then I'll be able to, have this be a father in his life. And as long as they're thinking about him, then we're going to be fine. I don't know what changed. I don't know where it changed, but all of a sudden, some of the most disrespectful things happened. And they took away my ability to even be called dad. So they started using my first name around my son. and they intentionally did everything they could to make it so that the bond between me being able to even be his dad was removed. And they did it psychologically in that case. So he stopped calling me dad, stopped calling me daddy, and then started calling me just Shane. I don't know if anybody knows how difficult that is when you haven't left your child's life. You have no intention of leaving their life, and you've done everything you can to fight for them. And then your reward is not only removal of all the rights, which I basically didn't have any in the first place, to be honest. The way that everything ran, the court systems, all that stuff, completely corrupt, completely just crooked, and it's 100% against the men 99% of the time. It just is. But then they have to go through and they have to remove my title, remove my role, remove the relationship aspect of father and son from him. And the crazy thing is I couldn't even do anything about it. And I couldn't even have done anything about it regardless. Because he was always in another state, and they always found ways to be able to make sure that it was impossible for me to be able to see him and get him. So unfortunately from there, every single time that I would start speaking with my son and he would start getting better at communications, it would just tear me apart every single time when I'd hear him just say, "Hey, Shane," like it's brutal. It's brutal. And unfortunately, he still is doing it to this day. And he knows that I'm his bio dad, which is what he calls me. But I've been here the whole time. I haven't left. I haven't ever said, "Oh, I'm never going to talk to you again." I've never said I'm going to abandon you. I've never said any of those different types of things. And in fact, what would happen is I would try and communicate, try and talk, try and engage. And then all they would do is just end up finding ways to create an excuse to try and control who, what, where, when, why I could communicate with him. And every excuse under the book, from, "Oh, he has autism. We spoke with his counselors. They said that he shouldn't talk with his biological dad." Like, if there's somebody who actually says that, they need to get fired. The problem is her track record. She was practically borderline compulsive liar. So you never even know if what's true or not, what's being told to you, ever. So that even causes more chaos, because if a person tells you the truth, then at least you can identify challenges and problems and work forward. But if a person's just always lying and feeding you absolute garbage and doing everything in a conniving and evil and discriminating and all that stuff way, it's very difficult to maneuver. It's very difficult to have any sort of footing. So the only real footing that I ever had in this whole entire situation of having to give up my son for adoption, and I say that I really had to, not because I physically was put into a position where, somebody took my hands and wrote on the paper for me, but I say that because I knew that it was going to be an endless, not even uphill, an impossible battle to win. If you've ever faced somebody who has 20 times the amount of capital that you do, let alone 1,000 times the amount of capital that you do, and they can just throw things away because they're already in retirement, like their just disposable income is practically endless, and they want to throw lawyers at you, they're gonna win. There's no way around it. And so the only way to win against that is to try and negotiate with, hopefully appealing to somebody's humanity, I guess. And if that doesn't work, then it was going to be a loss no matter what, you know? But the thing that I was able to leverage is like, I documented everything. And I remember telling her after she, quote unquote, won getting the adoption, I let her know that I said, just so you know, when he's 18 years old, no matter what you do, he's going to find me and he's going to seek me out. Because she has all control to be able to make it so he could never talk to me again, technically, right? So I said, I don't care what you do, but just so you know, I'm going to give him everything. And I'm going to let him make his own decision. And he's going to have every single text. He's going to have every single email. He's going to have every single one of the contracts that I wrote. He's going to have every single one of the contracts that you let your lawyers draft. He's going to have all the different audio that has all the communications between us, hearing come out of your mouth agreements where we were apparently coming in alignment and trying to think of the best of him. And he's going to also see the document, and he's going to see the adoption paperwork, and he's going to know the story. He's going to have it all there, and I'm going to have the witnesses. I said, if he turns 18 years old and you are not actually doing what's best for him, then he is going to resent you for the remaining 80 years of his life. I said, you want his first 18, and it's up to you to decide whether you're going to be in his life for the remainder. So I think that's the only real reason why I even have any ability to communicate with him today. I'm still blessed despite the challenges from being called my first name by my own son. But, you know, I still got to talk to him today. I still got to see him make a cardboard box where he was the, you know, TV weatherman presenter. I got to have a conversation about him wanting to become an engineer, and he wants to work on rockets and wants to create games, and he wants to create a rover and find artifacts on other planets. And if I look at it from that perspective, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of pain, but I know for a fact that the fact that he can actually have the curiosity and have the creativity and have the space where he has a home where he can build that and pretend and laugh and joke and have fun, have friends, and have that support tells me that I made the right decision. Because at this age where he is smiling and he's having fun and he's having a great time, I was dealing with suicide. I was dealing with being beat up every day. I was dealing with being basically beat up by my own mother every single day. I had nowhere to run. I had nowhere to hide. And I was going through existential crises at this point in my life at that same age. And I know for a fact that he's way happier. And I know that he doesn't have the signs that come with the conflict and the chaos that I had to deal with, because I can look at myself when I was that age and I can say, yeah, I was confused as heck. That confusion is what led me to the point where I even made the mistakes, not having him, but made the mistakes of prioritizing someone like his mother at that point in time. I should have never let someone like her in my life, ever. A terrible decision. It was a dumb decision. But when you grow up in that world as a child, you have to reconstruct everything for yourself, and you are completely not equipped to do so. Not at all. And knowing that he has the tools and resources and support necessary, that at least he doesn't have to work through that type of stuff, is incredible to me. And I would sign the adoption paperwork every single time to know that he avoided that crap that I went through. And it's worth the pain. It's worth the gritting my teeth, you know, and having to just still smile in the midst of there always being a massive prodder that scares you. And so I hope that my my story's beneficial. And I do want to say one other thing too. I'm leaving out a very critical aspect of the story, and I'm doing it intentionally.
Hey,
I'm in doing a podcast. Okay, I'll be done in just a couple minutes. Can you please go down and say hi to mommy?
That mommy's gonna show a show on for me.
Okay, go down and watch a show, and I'll be down in a second. Okay.
After you're done with the
Yep.
phone call, you can get that.
Yeah, after I'm done with the phone call. Love you. Love you. I'll see you later. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
But make sure that you get off the call when you're done.
Yes, I'll get off the call when I'm done. I love you. I'm almost done.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Sorry.
That's okay.
Um.
You said you were leaving out a critical part.
Yeah. So the critical part that I left out is a part that's specific to the strategy. The specific strategy that the lawyers used to put me in a place where I had no choice. And I'm doing that because I want to actually let all the men in particular know this. And women, I'm positive that you also know this as well. But right now, the court system is completely and 100% not in favor of men at all. I would say that it's like men, if we have a even representation of any kind, it's like we're showing up with a tiny little kitchen knife. And the court systems automatically equip the women with practically a bazooka relative. And I'm not saying this is good or bad. What I'm saying is that for the men who really actually care and for the men who really actually want to see their kids, they want to be involved in their life. I've seen women who are literally doing cocaine, heroin. They have men coming to the house and they win. When the father was the one that was just taking care of the children for the last year and a half, 2 years, and was still paying for the child support, was still paying for the living conditions, taking care of 3 kids with his job, and trying to go and fight in court, and the court just hands the mother the children and then slaps cuffs on the father. I don't know exactly why it is that it's created this way. I believe that the narrative that they position it is just a mask of some kind relative to what the real intention is behind it. And I also know that there's other judges and stuff like that who they just see so many cases and they see so many fathers who don't actually want to be part of the kids' lives. And the kids are absolutely in a similar situation to where I was, where they're using, being used as father, and it's just this whole manipulative mess. And I do agree that the first 3 years or so, there's a lot more of a nurturing type of nature that women absolutely present. And it has a wonderful and incredible space within those first few years, for sure. But I want to make sure that the guys who do care and do want to have a fighting shot, they want to be able to make it so they can have at least maybe a 50-50. Because I think that really 9 times out of 10, 50-50 is actually what's best. And I don't know why it is that it almost never actually really gets awarded unless there was marriage involved originally, and the kids are basically considered property, which is crazy to me. But if you're a guy and you're trying to use every resource that you have, you've already gone through the state, you've already gone through the nonprofits, you've already done every single angle that you can, and you know for a fact that the system is for sure making it so that they are trying to keep you from your kids, then I want to be able to reserve this particular strategy to communicate with you. So if you want to reach out to me, I will let you know literally the strategy that was used against me by these lawyers, where it was hundreds of thousands of dollars, something I could have never anticipated, something that all the legal people that I had on my side couldn't have even conceived, because fact is that they hired better lawyers. Just fact. And the strategy was brutal. It was ruthless. It was evil. Relative to what our situation was, at least. Those lawyers did not care about my son. They just cared about their client trying to win. I would love to be able to give you that weapon so that you can have a fighting chance within you trying to get your son or your daughter or your kids, and make it so it's an even playing field again, at the very least. And you don't have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in lawyer fees to speak with the best of the best out there to get it. I would just love to give it to you. So feel free to reach out to me individually, and I want to hear your story. I want to make sure that you've gone through everything that you've tried to do, because this is one of those that's this strategy is very, it's a long game, and it's also brutal. I don't even know how else to describe it. It's just brutal. So I want to make sure that you've done everything else first. And I don't want you to have to go through a situation where you're hearing your child, when you're trying to have a relationship with them, calling you by your first name, when there's no reason. That you didn't deserve that at all. And for the other dads who are trying to come back into your kid's life, man, I think you really screwed up. You kind of deserve it. But for all those other dads who are really wanting to fight, wanting to find any sort of ounce of another fraction of a way to be able to just get a chance, then I want to be able to help you guys, because seriously, a fatherless home is one of the worst conditions your kids can be in, period. And we've seen what it's done to our society with the dads not being provided equal opportunity, if you will, to be a part of their kids' lives. It's just been causing more chaos and more destruction than anything. It's not been a positive event. If you look at the statistics, if you look at the data, if you look at the events, how things are unfolding, it's just crazy. But I'm also going to say this too, and this is, I think, the one last thing that I want to mention to you guys. If you are also going into your marriage, trying to go into that marriage selfishly, you're waiting for it to happen. You're asking for it to happen. If you're going into that marriage where you're not actually showing love to your wife, and being married before you have the kids, man, it's such a game changer, even in the landscape of the legal side of things. But you need to be able to actually show up and actually know how to show love. And you need to be able to make sure that your wife is able to feel it. You need to make sure that it's not an element of just making her happy. What it is being able to be that leader and being able to hold accountability for yourself and to her. You're supposed to be one that goes out there and is leading from the front. And if you're doing what you're supposed to do, if you're not going into that relationship expecting that she's going to become your servant or some type of BS, or thinking that you're going to also have some sort of really lavish lifestyle and you're not going to have to hold up and own up to whoever it is that you chose to marry, I mean, your kids are going to be the ones who suffer. And they're going to suffer the most, especially because they're probably not going to have you in their life in most of the cases. So don't do it. Don't be dumb. Don't make my stupid decisions, please. Be more thoughtful. Don't think with the other head. And think about your relationships as if you're going to marry this woman, and not just marry her down the line. I mean, the moment that you take her out for her first lunch or the first dinner or the first date, that you are pretending that you're going to marry her that night. Pretend. Think of it in that way. Imagine how much faster you're going to filter through the women who are not actually the marriage material for you, who would be a terrible match for you. Do it. That's how you're going to save yourself the absolute worst pains that you're possibly going to feel, which is when you're dealing with your kids. I can't even describe it. It's the top 5 worst feelings is every single time that my son does that thing with the whole name. It's miserable. And I'm going to be listening to it potentially for the rest of my life because of one decision. Like, don't do it. Just freaking crazy.
So, Shannon, how often do you get to see your son now or talk to your son?
So unfortunately, it's dependent upon him. Right now, the condition is it's dependent upon him and his mom. So if his mom is, I don't know, not feeling good that day, she may end up being in a situation where next thing you know, it's, oh, you only can talk to him through email. Or, you know what, you can't talk to him for a week or a month or whatever. And even when she does those things, you know, let's say she says, oh, you can't talk to him for a month. A week will go by or 2 weeks will go by. And next thing you know, I have an email from him. She doesn't hold to anything. It's complete chaos. So I never know at the end of the day. Today was a great day because it was one of those days where he got to actually call me and I got to hear his voice. And most days, that's not the case. Most days, it's the best I get's a video that may be sent to me of a moment that was funny or whatever. But he's still living his life over there, and I have to sit by and patiently, you know, hold my hands and just say thank you for, call it the morsels of whatever's provided, you know.
So how has your life changed since that happened?
Oh my goodness.
Progressed.
All right, number 1, that was one of the greatest learning experiences for me ever. I got to see that the rich people are just as scared as the people who are homeless. And I got to see that fear rules most people, so much so that even though there was no reason for them, you know, to fear me or to want to do this type of activities on trying to push me into this position, right? I got to see the truth of what a lot of those people are like, who have a ridiculous amount of money. And I'm talking like they could buy an actual sports team type of money. They're just people. And they are scared. They're hurting. They're lonely. They're angry. They're using each other. They're doing all of that stuff. It doesn't stop. Money doesn't stop it. In fact, it just accentuates it. That's what they did. They showed their true colors by using the money. And that taught me a lot, because number 1, I was like, wow, I had to reprioritize what I actually valued in people. And the biggest blessing from that is I got to prioritize kindness. Now, I'm not talking about what I think a lot of people talk about as far as like kindness is like you're going to accept somebody else's flaws as if they're okay. No, I think we all need to grow. We all need to develop. We're here to actually help each other, not help each other lift each other up. We're here to help each other sharpen each other. It's enabling for better. It's not enabling for just compassion's sake or sympathy's sake. Kindness, in my experience, is somebody who absolutely has the heart to do what is hard on behalf and for someone else, and doing it with full intention of the betterment of the other. I believe that's really the best embodiment of what love really is supposed to be and how it's showcased. And by prioritizing that, my life has become infinitely better, infinitely better. And even being able to understand the perspectives of people like his mom and what she goes through, I don't hold ill will about it. I don't hold anger or any sort of maliciousness. And I actually hope that she does the right thing. I hope that she is every single day doing absolutely what's best for my son. I hope that she's going to make it so that when he is 18, he's going to look back at her and he's going to say, I'm so happy that you're my mom, and want to have that relationship with her for the rest of his life. And if she does the right thing, then he'll also hopefully come to me, and the relationship will be able to be of relationships going to be able to be molded around, I believe, the right principles, right? So it helped me think more clearly on legal. It helped me think more clearly on money. Helped me think more clearly on people. Helped me think more clearly on now my wife. My wife is a wonderful person. I'm super blessed to have her. She's awesome. And she's incredibly kind, right? It helped me be able to actually lead into what I'm doing now in terms of human behavioral analytics and tracking. I got to see the truth of what those people are like and get that crazy amount of exposure, not only being homeless myself, but also being around those people. And I got to see the success. I got to see the potential. I got to get that taste of the full spectrum. And so now I'm a much more well-rounded individual. It's hard to be able to lie to me. It's hard to be able to come to me with empty words and empty actions and empty promises and it get through the filter. And it's made me such a more thoughtful, compassionate, deliberate, tactful individual as a general statement. And I would never want to go through it ever again.
I can agree with you on that.
Yeah, I would never want to go through it ever again. The sad thing is I really don't know that there's anything I could have done differently. Like, I think that's another thing I get that a lot of people do is they look back and they go, oh man, if only I'd done this thing different. I'm like, the only thing different I could have done is I just not had relations with her. Everything else was really the best I could do.
You know, we can't change the past. We can only look
Yeah.
to the future.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the future for when your son turns 18 and you have an opportunity to have that close relationship with him.
Yeah.
And you just keep doing everything right and that will happen.
Yeah. And so it's like, as long as I keep on letting him know that, hey, you can call me, you can text me, you can message me, you send me photos, you want help with your homework, whatever. I don't care. Send it my way. I'm here. That's the best I can do.
Not holding anger or ill will. Yeah, that doesn't help you any. Right?
Yeah.
What's the point? That's just a waste of energy.
Well, and it doesn't help him at all.
No.
If I hold that animosity towards his mom and he feels it, well, guess what? He's in a position where his mom is part of his life. I'm not. So if I'm angry at her, and he senses it, then he feels as if I'm angry at him too. Like, I think people need to also understand that. Yeah, sure, you got skewered, but you also asked to get skewered. You signed up for that when you went down the path you did. And when you did that, you ended up creating another human being. And this human being is supposed to be the one outside of your spouse that you're supposed to cherish and you're supposed to love and you're supposed to do and jump in front of a bus of. Okay, well, guess what? If forgiveness is the equivalent of jumping in front of a bus, and that's what's good for your child, then jump. It is what it is.
So life is good for you today?
Yeah, I'm I get to actually stay home. I work from home because I own the business, and my wife also actually gets to work from home as well. And I get to see my daughter every single day. I'm actually the main caretaker during the main part of the day because my wife deals with HIPAA compliance. So unfortunately, it's less. She has less accessibility than I do. And while I'm working, I get to go catch frogs, go into the garden. I get to go and hang out in a pool with her, and she doesn't get as much attention as I know that I would like her to get. But at the same time, I know that what we're doing now with FQ3C and what we're doing to help people change their lives is incredibly important. And we're in a position where nobody else is doing it the way that we are particularly doing it and what we're bringing to the market. So I know that it's one of those situations where if I don't do it, nobody will. And at the same time, I'm okay with my daughter seeing it in action, seeing the work, seeing the development, seeing the conversations, hearing it, being saturated in it, being able to pop into, meetings and say hi to random strangers. I gotta say, yeah, that's a pretty good life. And
I agree with you totally.
keep on getting better, which is really cool.
Yeah, family is the most important thing.
Yeah.
I have my regrets for putting a son up for adoption, but I gained 3 grandchildren and 7 great-grandchildren from that relationship. And my life just changed totally. And all for the better, all for the better.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you, Shane, for being here. I want to thank you for your honesty and for telling that straight, all those truths that you told us. We really appreciate it. I know there's a lot of young, I should say gentlemen out there that are going through similar things. If you would like to learn more from Shane, please email or go to rootsandbranchesadoptionstories.com to the website, and then you can send messages by that, which I can gladly forward to Shane for you to get that, to get his secret tip that can help you out. All right, so thank you again for being here tonight. And again, we really appreciate it. So I'm going to. So I have watched and listened to Shane's recording a number of times. And I just wanted to let you know the 3 points that I felt that touched my heart. Okay? The first one that he said that got to me was honor the children. So no matter what kind of relationship you're in with your ex, think of the children and let them be children. Don't put them in between. Use them as a bargaining chip. Be adult about the situation and let the children remain children and get them to enjoy their life and not feel like they are responsible for everything that's gone wrong. The second thing he said was be in for the long haul. You don't know how it's going to turn out, which way it'll go, but be prepared. He said, keep all your texts, all your emails, everything that you do with lawyers, keep track of all the dates, keep it all in a box. So one day, when your child is ready to meet you and wonders why you didn't fight for them, you can just give it to them and let them know that you did fight. And the third point that I'd like to make is that there's very little assistance out there for the dads, for the birth dads. I've learned something after hearing this, that there is what they call a putative rights for a dad. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it has to do with a birth parent who you're not married. So there is a registry for dads if you have no intention of marrying the mother of your child. There's a registry that's available currently in 32 states. And if you register while your partner is pregnant or within 30 days after the child is born, if you part, then you're registered as the father, and anything to do with adoption, you'll get notified of. So I tried to find out a list of these states, and what I found was there is a foundation called Sky is the Limit Foundation. And on this site, this is for birth fathers. And it has a list of all the states and how you can register to be part of that putative rights registry. As he said, the courts tend to favor women. I shouldn't say women, the courts tend to favor the mothers. And fathers don't always have a chance. Now, the father of my child, he didn't want anything to do with it. And maybe that might be a position that you're in. But if at any time you think you might have regrets in the future, and if you can possibly register now, then you'll at least have a say in what happens to your child. Okay, so remember that. SkyIsTheLimitFoundation.com.
Thank you for tuning in to Roots and Branches Adoption Stories, where every tree has roots, every life has branches, and every adoption has a story. Got an adoption story you want to tell? Want to learn more about adoption stories? Then visit rootsandbranchesadoptionstories.com.